Aloha, namaste. I'm here to let you know that tomorrow is one of the most auspicious days of the year. It's called Akshaya Tritya. And this day is a day when both the sun and the moon are exalted. So they're both in their highest state of operation, of intelligence. And we celebrate this day on the third lunar phase that comes after the new moon in sidereal Aries. So after we have had that new moon, 3 days later, or 3 moon phases later, we'll see that the moon is then exalted in Taurus. So the sun exalted in Aries, moon exalted in Taurus, we see a lot of potential for success here. The reason is because these two luminaries are our biggest identity factors. They are, other than your rising sign, which is of course not something we can, make a day for everyone on. The moon is exalted in Taurus because it's where we feel the most grounded. It's where we're able to take care of the material needs we have, which we all have. We all need food, we all need shelter, we all need comfort and peace. We need, things to feel like stable in order for our mind and our emotions to feel stable. And the moon is that. It's our mind, it's our emotions, it's our psyche. And in order for that tumultuous roller coaster ride that we do ride, because the moon is constantly changing signs. It's in 27 different stars. It's always moving. We need to be able to ground, and we need to be able to have enough of the external things we need cared for so that we're not in a state of stress. Because you can't. Sometimes people have just really imagined fears, and their life is sort of a roller coaster ride, even though their actual physical needs are totally met. That's more of a Scorpio thing, which is where the moon is debilitated. It's more of an issue where somebody's living in a state of constant fear and emotion and drama, and they're not able to stabilize. But for somebody who doesn't necessarily have a emotional issue, but they don't have food on the table, or they're unsure if their rent is going to be paid, or they're not able to provide for their family, that's going to cause stress. No matter how grounded of a person they might be, it's stressful to not have your needs met. It's almost impossible to sit in a calm place in your mind if you're in that state of stress where your literal needs are not being met. So Taurus really helps us seek comfort, peace, finances, material things that we need in order to feel okay. And that's a very important part of having stability in the mind and in the heart. And of course, in our Western world, we know many, many people, all of us, who have all of their needs met and more, and are constantly riding a roller coaster anyway. That is, that. It's a lack of okayness with what they have as well. It's a perceived fear they're constantly living in. Even though their needs are very much met, they somehow perceive they're not being met. And in Taurus, it's not just that we have food and we're not starving, it's that we're actually enjoying the food, and maybe even growing the food and cooking the food and having taking place in the making of the food and then eating it. And so we have a through line to everything we're doing, and it's very grounded and very comforting, and we feel good. In Taurus, you don't only feel good within yourself, but you also you get that your friends and neighbors and family and loved ones need to also feel good, that you can't just be sitting enjoying a fine meal while there's thousands of people outside your door that are starving. That there's a sharing quality to it, a harmony with others quality to it, where there's plenty for everyone. So you lose a lot of those imagined fears here. The sun has been exalted since April 13th, so the sun's been in sidereal Aries since then. And I know if you're, a Western astrology person, you're like, but the sun's now in Taurus. Well, this is actually coming from the Vedic system. It's coming from the sidereal zodiac, and it's much more accurate as far as our view here on Earth. Looking up, the sun is actually still in Aries, so it's not actually in Taurus. But the moon is. So it's a little confusing for people when they don't understand the degrees difference between Western and Vedic astrology. But Western astrology has not accounted for the progression of the equinox, so it's therefore ahead, not behind, of the actual degrees of where things are in the sky. So it can be a little bit more of a intuitive art form than the sidereal system, which is a bit more accurate and scientific. So the Sun being exalted in Aries is giving us the courage we need to lead. Not necessarily to lead others. We might not necessarily all be that type of person who wants to, lead the crowd or lead even our own business. But we each have our own world, right? And we have all the different parts in ourselves, just like the moon is our mind, it's our psyche, it's our mind, it's our psyche. It's also the collective psyche. The sun can be you as a leader, or you as a president, or you as a whatever, captain of the ship, but it's also you as the leader of your own being, the you that guides all the other parts of you. And it needs to be connected to that which is higher. It needs to be connected to source, to energy, to love, to whatever it is that you believe in, whatever way you believe in it. And it needs to have that confidence and that courage to act on what you know is right, not on what others tell you is right, not on what other people's agendas are because you want them to like you, because you want them to be your friend. That is not what the sun does. The moon in a compromising state like Taurus, where there's a harmonious give and take, is very different because the moon is looking to connect. The sun is not looking to connect, it's looking to lead. And it's looking for us to stand in our power and to guide us in good ways. So you can be friendly with people while you walk your own walk. You can have a very strong, firm understanding of what it is you need to do in this world, and at the same time stop and offer food to others, or offer smiles to others, or make sure other people's needs are met without controlling them. That's another aspect where you're in your own world of what you want to do, and you're not trying to dictate to others. You're not trying to tell other people what the best thing for them is to do. When our sun is in a place of power, we are courageous on our own mission, and we discipline ourselves, and we act with that discipline and that courage in the direction that is most aligned with our connection to source. And that's really what we need in order to take good action in this world, because a lot of people think they're doing good things and that they're helping the world and such, but their actions are misaligned, their agendas are misaligned. They're coming from places that are not attuned, and they're coming from places often that are not even self-perpetuated. They're on someone else's agenda, and they've been given someone else's food for thought. They're not even aligned with themselves, let alone anything higher. So that's why this day is really important, because it offers us our two luminaries in such strong positions where we really can put forward good steps. And it's a day to offer our energy in the direction of something we want to multiply, something we want to grow, to manifest. The is like without, no, not. The Akshaya is the diminishing, the eroding quality. So this is not eroding. This is something where you put forward your effort and it does not erode, it doesn't decline, it doesn't go blah, blah, blah. If you've ever started something right before a new moon and you've paid attention, then you know that it kind of like tanks, because it's like the dying energy of right leading up to a new moon. People who have that in their charts often feel a lot of depression because they are literally waning in life to complete darkness. They're right before the dark moon. So their energy and engagement in the world is waning to black. They might be very good at meditation, or have certain qualities that they use to their own benefit, but it can be depressing because you're less engaged with the world. You're pulling away from the world. So that's why we start things on new moons. We start things after the moon is dark. It's starting to grow. People who garden or farm know that that's been used in many cultures. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of literature on people planting seeds at a certain point, and usually I think it's like 3 days after the new moon, where it's going to get the seeds are going to grow, they're going to expand, they're not going to die, they're not going to plummet. So this is the same thing here. You want to plant seeds that are going to grow, and it's not just any new moon, it's the new moon where the sun's exalted and the moon's exalted. So you have this opportunity to really be clear in your vision and really be not off on all these other tangents because your needs aren't met. So it's a very important day for us. Now in India, a lot of times people will use this day to pray to the goddess Lakshmi, who is the goddess of wealth and love and beauty and all these sort of material things that we want in this world that are lovely and nice and feel good and give us comfort and give us money, things that we need also. But she's also very high in a spiritual sense. If you're praying to Mahalakshmi, to the great Lakshmi, you're really moving beyond that sort of I want gold, or I want a husband or a wife, or you're moving into a new realm where you want spiritual gold. You want the high spiritual potential of your own self, what you're capable of. And if you sort of lose the material visions of what you think you want, and maybe you really have it clear, maybe you want a house with this number of rooms and this color, and maybe you want this partner that looks exactly like this, and you want this amount of money. You might have very clear visions for what you want in the material world, but then if you were to get it, it might not actually be everything you dreamed of or everything you wanted. There'd be new problems, things you didn't know were going to go wrong. Meanwhile, the thing you thought was the most devastating thing that could ever happen happens, and it somehow clears space for something incredible, something you could never have even imagined in your human imagination capacity. So the highest thing to really put your energy into on this day, it's really more than a day, which I'll get into in a minute, but that is something that's going to bring you lasting results and multiply on a spiritual level. Because of course, the more you have that quality of spirit, the more you are tuned in to your highest self, the more everything else works out. The more, what really high spiritual person is just constantly struggling in life? Usually not. Even if something devastatingly, happens to them, even if they are out of money, even if they are, without love, even all these different things, they usually still keep a fairly even mindset about it. They're not just plummeting up and down. On the other hand, you see lots of people who are very well taken care of financially and have perhaps even security of partnership and all these other things, and they're on a constant roller coaster. You just can't make them happy. Everything is always about them, and it's always fearful and bad and this, that, and that. I personally know lots of people like that, where their needs have never not been met, and they are a mess. And then I've traveled the world to many people, and I've personally experienced my own financial ups and downs. And I know so many people who've really hit sort of rock bottom financially, especially where their needs really maybe aren't met. And yet biggest smiles on their face and most able to even take time and help somebody else. Oh, here, you need a shirt, here, take my shirt. It's my last shirt. You can have it. My last meal, no problem. Here you go. And they just don't have that fear. They just don't have that massive vacillation of emotions. And so it's really a state of mind, right? And the more your state of mind is clear, the more everything else starts to clear up. And we all have sort of our places where it's easier or harder, and we all have our degrees to which we are able, which we even have spiritual practices or anything like that. But no matter what your personal story is, and no matter what your relationship to spirit is, you do have capacity to sit with yourself and maybe close your eyes, maybe not. In some traditions, people meditate with their eyes open, and just really kind of reflect on yourself, on things that you see outside of yourself that you don't like. You can always sort of self-question, like, do I do something like that? Or try to understand people if they make you angry. The more we can try to understand ourselves and others and our nature in this world, the closer we get to being able to find that place of serenity, that place where we're not so dragged by the tides and we're more able to stay calm. So this day can be a great day to put forward energy towards that. And the more you put your energy towards that, the more you're going to get the love and the gold. Maybe it won't look like gold, maybe it will just be your needs being met. Maybe, it won't be the love that you drew pictures of or that you put up on your vision board, but it will be a totally different love that you didn't even know existed. Whatever it is that you're needing, your new career path, your new whatever, the possibilities and things people want and need in this world is endless, and I can't say for everyone else what they want. But of course, I personally also want specific things in this material world that I would love to focus my energy and pray on. But if you don't have that humility to also sort of step back and say, well, I really want what's good. I really want not just what's gonna work out and make me feel good, but what's like good for the world, what's good for the planet, how am I going to be the most functioning member of this world, and how am I the most of service, and how am I the conduit that I want to be for love and for grace and for energy or God or goddess or whatever it is that you name that. How am I best here? And that's of course going to always bring us the most happiness in the end, because we're going to be in our correct whatever it's called, it's like if you're going out to the ocean and you want to surf, you can't just fight all the waves and battle everything and say, I want to go that way, and this, you have to ride the riptide. Maybe I should use an analogy of something I do. I don't surf, but I have spent a lot of time in the ocean, and I know that you have to work with it. You can't fight it. You just can't. You have to know when things are coming, and you have to have strategies for dealing with that. And you also have to ride when it's going to take you out there. You can't just go the way you want to go. And that surrendering that is learned in those kind of activities is being in the flow. It is satori or whatever phrase you want to use for it, because you have to let go of your ego for a minute. You have to let go of the part of you that's like, I'm going to make this happen, and sort of allow things to happen the way they're supposed to be. And it's not going to be exactly as you thought. You might not catch that exact wave you wanted to, or but you don't get to control the waves. You don't get to control what waves are coming. You don't get to control the weather. You don't get to control if there's a shark out there. You don't get to control all those things in any of our worlds, not just a surfer's world. None of us get to control all the many different factors that have nothing to do with us. So to be very willful in our lives is to completely ignore that fact and to think that no matter what's coming at us, we can go and get what we want. Well, it's ignorant. It's just not being tuned in, because of course did any of us, control or figure out or plan that this current moment in time for Akshaya Tritya would include a stay-at-home order and a pandemic worldwide where everyone in the world would be forced to stay home? No. None of us planned that. None of our wills planned that. I know there are people who believe somebody planned that, but each of us individually watching this for sure did not. And yet it's our circumstances, it's what we're working with. So you can't willfully get around it. It is what it is. You can't control that, but there's so many things you can control. And that's really what this day is about, putting forward the effort into the things that you can manifest. And you can pray for whatever you want. You can put your energy towards whatever you want. But the more humble you are about it, and the more you are really focused on being in rightness, being in alignment, the more everything's going to unfold in a way that you ultimately do want, and that does make you happy. So I hope that is helpful to you. Really quick, right before I finish this, I just want to mention, and I did mention this in my new moon report, so if you didn't get the new moon report, you're welcome to do that. You can go on www.radhahomeyoga.com, RADHAHOME, yoga, YOGA.com. And you can go to the forecasts and watch it, read it, and sign up for the email list if you'd like, and you can get more free forecasts like that. But the moon is going to be joined Venus in this Akshaya Tritya. She actually already is joined Venus, which is the other thing I wanted to mention. So Venus is in her own sign of Taurus right now. And this is giving us a lot of blessings around our romantic selves, around our sense of harmony, food, all those things I said that the moon really does well in Taurus for. Well, Venus also does really well in Taurus for. We're more able to relate. We're more able to enjoy and have pleasure and happiness when Venus is in Taurus. It's not high spiritual happiness. It's more grounded in the reality, the give and take, and the reality of taking care of our needs and our pleasures. So that is going to be joined, which is both a blessing and also adds a little bit more of a materialistic bent, or a want-based, desire-based, pleasure-based bent to Akshaya Tritya, making us more inclined to, pray for love or pray for something that we want, as opposed to what I was just talking about, where we're just trying to be in the flow and in tune and of service and all of those kind of things. So it does add that energy to it. It's not on the exact, like it's the later degrees of Taurus that it's in. So it's going to be as the moon is almost exiting the sign. But that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. So Akshaya Tritya is like calculated based on the moon getting into exaltation. So whether the new moon in Aries is at the very beginning, which it was in Ashwini, which is the first nakshatra, but it was you know, enough into Ashwini, it was like 9 degrees or something. You know, but it could happen later. That new moon could have been in Bharani, the next nakshatra. It could even have been in Kritika. So the 3-day rule, or the Tritya, is that the moon is going to end up in its exalted state in Taurus. But the moon is actually the most exalted at the beginning of Taurus, in Kritika. Kritika is a nakshatra that flanks both Aries and Taurus. And it means like to cut off, to disengage it. And it helps our mind and our psyche by like cutting out the fat, you know, letting go of that, the emotional attachment, and giving us more peace that way. The moon is actually in Kritika now. I'm filming this on the Friday, the 24th. So of course this is Pacific Standard Time in the US. This isn't in India. In India it's like, you know, already a day ahead, or 13 and a half hours ahead. We're in a very different time zone here. So a lot of these holidays are, if you know, were to Google the holiday, it's going to say the time in India because it's an Indian holiday. But when we're here in the US, you have to use the timing of the US. So it's going to be on Saturday, technically, here in the US. So that means the moon is already exalted right now. It's already in that state of, and it's actually in its most exalted state already. So that's something to reflect on. You can right now plant seeds that you want to move forward with. It's not in Tritya, it's not in that 3rd phase yet until I think, you know, somewhere around midnight Pacific time. So Saturday, you know, the 25th. But at that point, we have the whole day of Saturday where it'll be in Taurus, and then it'll even be in Taurus into Sunday again. In the US and in Pacific Standard Time, it'll even be into you know, like noonish or 1 on Sunday. So the whole time the moon's exalted, we have this experience of exalted sun, exalted moon, and that isn't going to change. And as the moon moves along farther in, it'll get in degrees with that Venus, which is at 22 degrees in Taurus. So that's just something to think about. It's not like 1 day, 1 minute, 1 hour that you pray on. It's an entire phase, and it's something that starts. You can start now. it's starting. The other thing is to be aware of. Is that Jupiter is giving his drishti to this Akshaya Tritya as well. And I did talk about this as well in my new moon report if you want a little bit more detail. But Jupiter is at very early degrees of Capricorn and gives a 5-house one-way gaze or drishti to Taurus in this placement. Now it's at the very beginning, so the gaze is actually strongest right now, not tomorrow. Jupiter giving its gaze in Akshaya Tritya sort of raises the potential for spiritual practices. It raises the potential for financial abundance. It raises the potential for expansion. In Capricorn, it tends to be more grounded in physical needs for the long term. So more like finances. It would take a certain type of person to have that be translated into more spiritual practices. It can also be governance, things like that. So Jupiter's gaze is coming from a constricted place where it's debilitated in Capricorn, so it's not as blessed as it would be if it was coming from, you know, Jupiter in Sagittarius or Jupiter somewhere where it's more happy, more itself. That being said, Jupiter is still a blessing, and even though it's debilitated, it's called Nichabanga, where it is right now. It's joined the ruler of Capricorn, Saturn, who's incidentally also in his own sign, and it's joined Mars, who's exalted. So we have two forms of what we call Nichabanga, where it's not a reversal of that debilitation, but it's an aid, it's a help. Its helpers are helping the debilitated Jupiter out and giving him a little bit more wisdom than he has normally in that house, in that placement. So all of that will be included in the gaze that's going right now on our moon, but it still brings a little bit more of a material bent due to the fact that it's in that earth sign that's in Capricorn, which is really sort of a fear-based earth sign that wants the long-term goals to be taken care of for self-preservation, for reasons of self-preservation. So you might find yourself wanting to invest in things like that, and it could really raise the desire to invest in the gold or the stock market or whatever it is that you think is going to bring you that material abundance. It's really important to constantly bring ourselves back to the memory, the reminder. There should be a word called rememory. I feel like that should be a word. That whatever we grow from the inside out will bring us the abundance we need. So it's not always our will that gets us there. So I hope that's a helpful message for you, and I hope that you have very blessed Akshaya Tritya, and that beautiful seeds are planted in your life and grow abundantly from here. And I thank you so much for your time and energy, and we'll see you again soon. Namaste.